Good evening, everyone. I am not Terry Devaney. Terry is under the weather because of our strange weather, being warm one day and cold the next. I'm Len Lucci, your substitute host, second resort. On my right, on your left, is our mayor, newly reelected, Fred Robinson. On my left, on your right, is Lynn Skirpon, noted attorney. And we're here to talk about issues, federal, county, state, local level, that are happening. So let's start with that super committee. And how super is it? Are they going to meet the deadline, Mayor Robinson?
Well, I think Erskine Bowles was right when he said last week that individually, they're all bright people. Collectively, they're not up to coming to a conclusion, and I think that may be prophetic. Now they're talking about doing this in 2 or 3 stages. Like, they'll come out after all of this debate and say, okay, here's the cuts. Now you committee people go out and affect them, which is not, I think, what anybody anticipated. But now you got about 80 or 100 congressmen, Republicans and Democrats, both have signed a letter to these people saying, we have your back. Don't go small, go big. Go to $4 trillion, whatever the 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you saw the speaker today being optimistic, and the majority leader in the Senate saying, I'm not really optimistic. So your guess is better than mine.
What's going to happen, Lynn?
Oh, I wish I had a crystal ball. They have got to come to something. They have to come to some kind of decision. The Republicans today were optimistic that they would get some cuts done. The Dems are not talking or not agreeing or whatever.
Well, the best way to see what's going to happen is look at history, right?
Yeah.
And it was 20 years ago that Congress passed Graham-Rudman-Hollings, which had automatic cuts if they didn't do certain things. So what do they do when they happen and they didn't do certain things? They just change the rules.
That's it, exactly.
And Graham-Rudman-Hollings never happened.
Mm-hmm.
The automatic meat cleaver things just didn't occur. So that's my prediction.
You saw Panetta today, the new Secretary of Defense, had some really draconian comments. He says, if you guys don't come to a conclusion and these kick-ins, these $500 billion cuts in defense come in, our ground forces will be the lowest they've been since 1940. The naval forces will be the smallest they've been since like 1910, and the air forces will be the smallest it's ever been. And if that's not a provocation of some kind of external challenge, he's saying nothing is. So here you got this guy who I like. I always thought he was a good guy.
Yeah.
He's telling everybody, he said, make a decision, do something. Don't throw it over and do one of those options, either change the rules after you do it or make these arbitrary and capricious choices.
How about that Republican race for president? We have a new flavor of the month coming up, Newt.
Right?
I have Newt.
I have Newt.
Right. They're just all imploding serially.
Yeah.
So who's the next to fall?
Someone asked the president, has he been watching these debates, and he said he's just waiting for the last person to be voted off the island.
Yeah. Yeah. Last man standing. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Last man or woman standing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what's going to happen there, but we were talking earlier. I said I was amused with Britt Hume's assessment tonight on the news when he said that he had good news and bad news for Newt Gingrich. The good news is he's surged in the polls to number 2 behind Romney. The bad news is he surged in the polls to number 2 behind Romney, and he started ticking off everybody else that had gotten to that point and then rolled off the bridge and got crushed. So
isn't that amazing?
It is, yeah. But
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, clearly Gingrich is the smartest guy on that podium.
He told us so himself.
Yeah. No, I think he is. I think he's a genuinely intelligent guy. He's got some great ideas. Sometimes he lets conditions get in the way of those good ideas. But I still think he's the smartest guy up there. And I think on a debate, I think he and Romney could stay on par with the president. I think all the others in a debate against the president get crushed. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does, to see if he can get past his baggage and whatever.
Exactly. He's got way too much
now
baggage.
that he's going to get all the limelight attention, where it goes from there.
So it'll come down to Romney, Gingrich, and I can't think of the third one. What was it? Help me. Oops.
The one that you were predicting last time?
Yeah. No, actually, in Iowa now, Romney's third behind Kane and what's the congressman from Texas,
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul, whose famous condition is we can't allow the fence to be built on the border because it'll keep Americans in. Yeah, I don't know about you two, but I watch TV a lot and I read a lot of newspapers. I haven't heard of any reports of a massive effort by Americans to flee this country. So I don't know what he's talking about.
If he gets elected, there might be that massive.
Yeah,
effort.
that could be. That could.
Did you see one of those debates? His left eyebrow actually fell off.
Did it?
Went viral on YouTube. He was making a point. All of a sudden, plop! It had been glued on.
Well, you know, the guy's interesting. He's got these interesting libertarian ideas on the economy, which, you know, agree with or disagree with. I mean,
Right.
at least there's a cogent argument behind what he is. But his views on international relationships and foreign affairs are just, you know, well, so what if Iran gets a bomb? You know, they're entitled. I mean, they'll be just friendly. We can just
It's
talk
called
to
freedom.
them.
Yeah.
You know, it's none of our business as to whether, you know, they want to blow up anybody else or, you know, if you got these lunatics that are running that country, give them a bomb. You know, what could go wrong with that?
Can't trust anybody with two first names. I mean, first name and a last name, not
Yeah.
a first name and a middle name.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
First name.
But it's going to, you're right, it's going to be an interesting time. And Iowa's in what, about 40, 50 days now? January 3rd?
Yeah. And the
So-
president's numbers are coming back.
I saw some,
Well, look who he's competing against.
well,
Yeah.
today. It was,
He's even beating the generic Republican.
Yeah, I saw the one today was 43-43, the president against the generic Republican. And what's the guy, the guy from UVA that's on television all the time?
Sabato.
Sabato. I mean, his point was he expects the president's numbers to go up, but he said no sitting president who's running against the generic other side is at 43% is going to win. So he's got to do something dramatic within the next few months. But either that or hope he gets an opponent that can't count above 43. But you're right, it's going to be that is going to be what happens in Iowa. I think will start narrowing the Republican field, and then what New Hampshire will narrow it some more, and South Carolina will narrow. My guess is probably in the next 3 months it'll be down to 2 or 3 people.
I don't think they need a whole lot of narrowing. I think they're doing that to themselves.
Just let them
Yeah.
debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have 9 people on the stage, and 6 of them are at 1% or 2%, something's got to happen.
They're not serious contenders.
I don't know how you raise money. I don't know how you
No.
keep an organization together. I don't know how you do campaigns in 6 or 7 different states at the same time when nationally you're polling at 1 or 2%, and in some of those states you're polling, you know, in the low single digits. So we'll see who drops off first.
Santorum.
Santorum will go first, I think, and Huntsman will go. And Huntsman is one of the brighter guys in that group, I think.
That's why he'll go.
He'll go. He'll go. So is that your wager that Santorum's the first to go?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be the first to go.
Has anybody Googled Santorum
I haven't.
I have not.
on your own time?
No,
Google
no.
Santorum.
So
Okay.
that's why you
and then
think
we'll
he's going
agree
to
with
go?
you.
Okay, so that's the feds. Nothing too exciting, right?
This country's going broke. The mortgages are sinking. And we don't have any money. We're borrowing money from China, and now we can't even come together on an oil line. And the Canadians said they're going to sell their oil to China. What else could go wrong?
Next, the state, or should I say Penn State?
Oh.
Penn State. No.
Wow.
I know a bunch of people who went to Penn State, and I don't know how you don't look at this and say, is this not a perfect example of where protect the program at all costs has led into some really horrendous decisions by a lot of people that should know better.
Right.
They're saying I heard some astronomical numbers that the football program brings in about $100 million a year, and it nets about $60 million a year.
They'll be spending that on judgments,
Yeah,
on lawsuits.
I mean, it's got to be affecting these people, but people that you've grown. I'm watching Paterno. I mean, he has a great reputation with graduating his kids and following up and making sure that they are in class, unlike a lot of college coaches. But I don't know how you can sit back and say, well, somebody told me this happened and all I did was pass it on. I don't get that.
If any other colleges are out there, Rule 1, don't tell the athletic director, tell the police.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. Well, apparently Pennsylvania's got a law. Maryland's law is very specific.
Yeah, very
If you have any kind of supervisory relationship, you are obligated to tell the police or social services, and whatever agency is notified has to notify the other, and that starts the process to review. Apparently in Pennsylvania, that it only applies to teachers and
Administrators.
but it doesn't apply to coaches and doesn't apply
Right.
to sports folks and all that. So I think that'll be the
Who have
first thing to
children in their
change.
custody.
Yeah. The governor's taken a pretty solid approach in Pennsylvania. They, stood up there and said, I respect these guys, I respect the program, but that's over here, and we're going forward. We're going to clean this mess up. Like I said, somebody's gone from Penn State to the state pen.
That's great.
Some
who did.
few are,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
very tragic.
It is. It's awful. Awful.
Meanwhile, in our state, we have our governor has become a national rock star on Morning Joe and Face the Nation and other shows, and has an upcoming session coming up where, once again, $1 billion short, but he has the ultimate arrow in his quiver that governors only have every 10 years.
Redistricting.
Redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Glendenning used to have the map on his wall when people would come in to see him and he would ask them for things. He would go, see, there's the map over there.
Yeah.
You don't think he would use census-driven redistricting numbers for partisan political benefit, do you?
Oh, no. I mean, he's
okay.
a political science professor. It's all
okay.
about theory.
Oh, okay. You're right. You're right. I lost my head for a minute there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, look at the congressional map. It's a court suit now against it, because the legend that it violates the Voting Rights Act. The interesting thing, though, is the attorney for the plaintiffs is a Republican state senator from Virginia.
Oh, well, I don't. It's interesting. Of course, Congresswoman Edwards is one of the most vocal critics of the changes, but I sat there and I watched the Black Caucus at Annapolis agree to the changes or support them. I saw the mayor of Baltimore, the county executive from Prince George's, and the county executive from Montgomery, all of whom happen to be black, stood up and said, this is fair, it's right, it's a good idea. And then Congresswoman comes up, Edwards comes up and says, this is unfair, to minorities. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I missing in this conversation? If all these other folks, seem to, is it just politics or is it
Unfair to
individual
one
perspective?
specific minority.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
But,
And she has an announced opponent already.
Right.
At least one.
at least one, Glenn Ivey.
Right.
Very strong candidate.
Yeah.
Elected countywide twice. Has Capitol Hill experience. Very bright, very likable, personable.
And if you can get by the fact that he's Harvard Law, he might be okay, right?
And then he went
And
to Princeton.
undergrad.
Oh my goodness, we got to have a serious discussion about this. I think he may well be a very formidable opponent.
Yes. And I think she did it to herself. She made herself vulnerable by taking on the establishment for what I don't consider a very valid reason. Like you said, everybody else agreed to this plan. I don't think she would have been vulnerable in her own district. She's very popular. I live in that district. Yeah. But she took on the governor. She took on Steny Hoyer. She took on the county executives from the counties within her district. And I think
it's going
she's
to be
done
an
it to
interesting
herself.
time. But I don't know for sure. But the impression that I got, the discussion I had heard was, what she was most concerned about was the loss of some precincts in Montgomery County, which, although they weren't overwhelmingly minority that would count in basically a base for her, they were in fact a pretty good and diverse mixture, but a relatively wealthy set of precincts that contribute a lot to that race. So maybe it was just purely a dollar and cents argument on her part. But
Now she has Glenn Burney and Pasadena and Brooklyn Park.
But I haven't looked at her numbers, but I always heard that she got a lot of money from out of state. It wasn't
Yeah,
primarily within the district.
Yeah.
right.
So I don't know that the
Well, they both have
Change
to
in
raise a
minds
lot
would
of
hurt
money in
her.
a short time. The primary's on April 3rd, and so it's a very short
You think
window.
this is a good time for me to float my new tax idea? That all federal campaign contributions should be taxed at the highest marginal rate, and that so if you're a candidate for president and you spend $1 billion, like 300 million of that should go into the coffers. If you're a senator or congressman and spending $1 million or $10 million, think of the bumper stickers we could make. I'm a candidate, tax me.
I like it.
Yeah, I thought you would.
Very good.
You kind of got that.
But I tell you what I kind of irritated me, I saw in the paper, and that is that the reason why we have to have slots in Prince George's County is so that we could pay for the University of Maryland Hospital to come to Prince George's County. And I thought, there's a University of Maryland Hospital in Baltimore, but they don't have to tax their own folks to pay for it, right? And then University of Maryland took over North Arundel Hospital, and the people in Anne Arundel County don't have to tax themselves to pay for it. And University of Maryland took over the whole hospital system in the Upper Shore. They don't have to pay a special tax for University of Maryland Hospital. Why do we have to be the only county in the state? If we want to have a nice first-class hospital, we have to pay for it. I don't get that.
I think there's still a whole lot of bad blood over Trim. That there's a feeling in Annapolis, and as there has been, that you Prince Georgians don't do enough to help yourselves. And while you have Trim sitting there and you're not paying, unlimited taxes, that we're not going to help you out.
And yet, you look at what they call the tax effort index. In other words, of all the available taxes, how much did you max out? We're number one because although we cap property taxes, we have the energy tax, telecommunications tax, transfer tax, recordation tax.
Right.
All of them are at the top
Yeah.
maximum limit.
Income tax.
Well, it's an interesting proposition, but I saw one of those commercials, I guess it was, that said, $400 million potential revenue from Rosecroft gambling, and that'll be enough to start on rebuilding the Prince George's.
$400 million in a year.
$400 million a year.
In a year.
That was the projection in terms of revenue. I tend to think that that's about as optimistic as some of the other estimates in other parts of the state that haven't come anywhere near their projections. But the suggestion was if we could raise $400 million, they could build a new hospital in a couple of years. I have no idea, what it would cost to, put up a campus akin to Prince George's and Cheverly these days. But my guess
About
is
$1 million a room, so like $300 million for a 300-room hospital.
Yeah. And then when you start putting in all the modern equipment and stuff like that, you're talking probably $1 billion in equipment. So you're probably talking about a couple $1 billion worth of investment if you're going to start from scratch and rebuild a hospital campus. But I guess one of the counter arguments is that for the last couple of years, the state has been funneling money into Prince George's specifically to keep Prince George's Hospital Center open and functional. So, you hear from people across the state that, well, why are we doing that? Why are we taking money from the Eastern Shore and Western Shore and sending that money over there? And then, of course, the counter argument is the one that you mentioned. Are we not, if we're collectively taking money and putting it in different locations because it's the state responsibility to do this, why isn't there a single kind of idea? If the state's going to do it, there ought to be a medical complex and maybe in each county, and some of the larger counties, maybe more than one, and they ought to be funded through the same source.
The state's contributions to Prince George's Hospital, while it's kept it on life support, are a pittance compared to the money the state has given to the University of Maryland Hospital in Baltimore
Sure.
and Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Sure, yeah, I understand. But no matter what they do, somebody's going to have to reach in, and one of these days, the people are going to have to take a serious look at Trim. And I know that they've tried it in years past, but people like hardheads like me and say, look, I'm certainly open to looking at replacing trim, but I personally have a real problem with eliminating, trim and keeping, for example, the Park and Planning Taxing Authority. So, I mean, if you put all that stuff on the table and you modernize the Prince George's approach and you streamline it and you do a lot of the streamlining of government, I think you could make a case to do it, to get the tax rate out of the charter. The argument I've always made is that to have the tax rate in the charter is akin to having the tax rate at the feds in the Constitution, which would be just as dumb. But it took a long time for people to get fed up with the way the county raised and spent money, and it's going to take an equal amount of time for them to overcome that. That's why I think Baker is on the right path. He's picking up some of the sacred cows and saying it's time to look at these and try to streamline. And I think by nature the school board's going to be taking some major internal assessments. With the reduction in enrollment and reduction in income, they're going to have to make some changes, make some serious business decisions.
I mean, they've lost about 10% of the enrollment in the past 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have plenty of schools that are way, way under capacity. But unfortunately, if you look at those schools, they're all bunched up geographically, and so it makes it very politically difficult to close them.
Well, you're looking at folks that are going to make an economic decision, a business decision, and a political decision, and they all tend to be exclusively divisive, or multiply divisive. So I don't know how they're going to end up doing it.
And the shame is that our superintendent has a great vision on how to take Prince George's Public Schools to the next level with specialty high schools and K through 8 or K through 4 and 5 through 8 and a universal pre-kindergarten. But it all costs money. In the last 3 budgets, he's had to have decreased budgets instead of increased budgets. And so it's just been very difficult for everybody concerned.
Yeah, I'm a big Haidt fan, Dr. Haidt fan. I mean, the guy I think is the right person at the right time. But the challenge that a lot of people overlook is that the last time I looked, it was probably a little bit under 2 of every 5 taxpayers in Prince George's County use the public school system. And that number's been going down steadily for the last generation. I don't know what the tipping point is, but at some point in time, you're going to have the overwhelming, you may have 75, 80% of the taxpayers not using the school system, and that's going to put a whole new set of pressures on, why continue to fund a program that we don't use? Notwithstanding the legitimate argument, I think that an educated community is an advantage for everybody. But
what started to change that very slowly is charter schools. At first, the public school community despised them. They saw it as competition. But now that they have empty school buildings, and if you have a charter school, you get more money in, it starts to, from a business decision, starts to look better.
Yeah, well, there's some attractiveness to those charter schools. I mean, if they're functionally independent and make a lot of operational decisions at their level, at their operating level, it just opens them up to be creative and to try to do things from maybe in a different way. It's what business is all about. Trying to do better with less, or trying to be more innovative. So maybe there may be a shining light coming through after all.
What else with the county? The county executive in his first year has put a couple of big scores up on the scoreboard. The hospital agreement with University of Maryland Hospital, the Economic Development Incentive Fund, the ethics legislation. So what's next?
How about a new high school for Bowie?
There we go.
We have a new council person.
Yeah.
Derek
sworn
Leon
in.
Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that bodes well, not just for the district, but for the county.
Yeah, I think Eric's going to bring some interesting things. But the one thing in that environment that he was doing, I mean, think of you have all the normal challenges facing you, and in his case, he has the person he replaced is going to prison. One of the council members is going to prison. We have 3 or 4 other elected officials representing Prince George's, either in Prince George's or at the state level. They're in various stages of investigation or en route to prison. So in that environment, he's still able to make progress, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, I gotta say, I listened to the voice of the tape of the arrest of the Johnson household.
Yeah.
I
It's
heard
been
some
on the
of it.
news
I
all
went
day.
online. I listened to the whole thing. It was chilling. I mean, a year ago we heard the transcripts, we heard what happened, but to actually hear the voices so clearly, it just kind of sent a shiver.
Well, I mean, you two are both practicing attorneys. I'm just, just a,
Practice makes perfect.
yeah, just a struggling little city kid trying to keep up. But I noticed that both of those people, both of them are prominent attorneys. And one was the chief prosecutor in the county for 8 years. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you as the former prosecutor are now telling your wife, making her a co-conspirator, and telling her to, destroy evidence or evade the police and do all these other things. Am I the only one that sees an incredible sense of irony, may be the wrong word, but I'm just struggling with it, I guess. But you're right, just listening to that conversation on the radio, separating out whatever personal relationship you might have with either one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, they're probably both nice people, but sit there listening to that and entering into this conspiracy on the radio, on the telephone about, well, make sure you do this and hide this money and flush this and
You can hear the toilet flush. On
exactly,
the tape. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's you couldn't write a story like this,
Right. And not just was it criminal and awful, but we were the laughing stock of the nation. I was out of town when that story first broke, and it went nationwide.
And now it's going nationwide that
Again.
if you're not too bright and disorganized, then you can't commit an ethics violation. Or you can't commit bribery.
Oh, you about Timmy Maloney's defense of a certain state senator?
Yeah.
My client's too stupid to do this. Is there a special part of law school that says when you're a criminal defense attorney and nothing else works, just tell them your client's stupid?
Yeah. Well, it's not as bad as Ike Leggett's defense many years ago in his civil case, where he just claimed he was unable to commit sexual harassment.
Because?
He was physically incapable of committing it.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, I don't know, but you're right. It's unfortunate, and I think that, again, if you look at the environment that Rushern walked into, not only do you have all the economic challenges and all the structural challenges and all the legitimate debates and complaints about where money is raised and where it's spent and all that, and then you wrap over that, the relationship we have at Annapolis, because people, A, don't think you're pulling your weight when you have trim, and B, you're coming up there asking for money when you don't do this. You're opposed to gambling, but you want your share. It's just an incredibly difficult thing to do all that. And then when you superimpose the embarrassing situations on top of it, I can't imagine how he.
But he's doing it well because people like him.
He is.
The public likes him. The press likes him. The folks, the leadership in
I like
Annapolis likes him.
And
Lynn, you like him,
I
right?
do like him.
Yeah,
But
I like him.
it's more than just liking him. He has earned our trust and respect.
Yeah.
And yet the county council doesn't want to approve his choice for county attorney. What's up with that,
I think they just have to exercise a little muscle. I mean, I think that's what they think they're doing.
Well, maybe the thing to do. I've always had this idea in the back of my head. Probably part of our problem is we got too many elected positions down there. Maybe if some of those elected positions just disappeared, and they're like the clerk of the court, why is that an elected position? Why couldn't that be appointed by the chief judge? Your old position, register of wills, could be appointed by the chief judge. And if you took some of those things and you went down the line, and
Sheriff, orphans court.
you
Right.
eliminate all of those things, and maybe the remaining people could get together and say, okay, now let's deal with the problem.
And that's the last word. Thank you for tuning in.